Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies, SOITS, Postgraduate Diploma in Environmental and Occupational Health, PGDEUH. MEV002 Environmental and Occupational Hazards. Block 1 Natural Hazards. Unit 1 Introduction to Natural Hazards and Disaster. 1.0 Introduction. We know that all the earth processes have been operating throughout the geological history, but these processes have become hazardous only because they negatively affect us. The earth is an open system with respect to energy, but essentially a closed system with respect to materials. The earth is also a dynamic, evolving system with complex interactions of internal and external processes. While the internal processes are primarily responsible for movement of plates, earthquakes, volcanic activities, the external processes are responsible for the wave generation, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes and droughts. The source of energy of the internal process is essentially radioactivity, whereas the source of energy for the external process is the sun. We benefit directly and our survival depends on the Earth's resources. However, the same Earth can be a dangerous place, and our understanding of these natural hazards is important for our continued success as a species. The first step to deal with hazards is to prepare. Thus, for us to have an understanding of the earth processes in which we live, it is important to look at the processes in structures that occur today and interpret what could have occurred in the past, i.e., applying the Hutton concept present is the key to the past. 1.1 Objectives. After reading this unit, you should be able to define the term natural hazards, explain the types of natural hazards, their effects, impacts and describe the vulnerability in human intervention. 1.2 Hazards and Disaster. Geohazard is a natural earth process that upon interaction with human activity causes loss of life and/or property. Earth processes means natural events that occurs within the lithosphere, hydrosphere or atmosphere. Geologic processes affect every living organism on the earth all the time, but they become obvious only when they affect life or property. Such life or property threatening processes is called natural hazards. Hazard is an inescapable part of life and no one can live in a totally safe environment. Hazard. A hazard can be defined as a potential threat to humans and their welfare, and risk as the probability of hazard occurrence. Hazard can also be defined as those elements of the physical environment harmful to man and caused by forces extraneous to him. Burton et al., 1978. A hazard has the potential to cause harm to people, death, injury, disease and stress. Human activity, economic, educational etc. Property, property damage, economic loss of environment, loss fauna and flora, pollution, loss of amenities. Disaster. A disaster occurs when an extreme event exceeds a community's ability to cope with it. Hazard event. It is the physical parameter of the hazard event that causes the harm. Environmental events become hazards once they threaten to affect society and/or the environment adversely. A physical event, such as a volcanic eruption, that does not affect human beings is a natural phenomenon but not a natural hazard. A natural phenomenon that occurs in a populated area is a hazardous event. Natural disaster. A hazardous event that causes unacceptably large numbers of fatalities and/or overwhelming property damage is a natural disaster. The best way to face natural hazards is obviously to predict and prepare. The long-term preparations for hazard mitigation are frequently complex and often involve investment of substantial resources. The relationship between humans and geologic processes is characterized by risk. The risk from natural hazards, while it cannot be eliminated, can, in some cases, be understood in such a way that we can minimize the hazard to humans and thus minimize the risk. To be able to do this, we must understand something about the processes that operate and understand the energy required for the process. Then, we can develop an appropriate plan of action for minimizing the risk. Although humans can sometimes influence natural disasters, other disasters that are directly caused by humans are considered technological disasters, such as oil and toxic material spills, pollution, massive automobile or train wrecks, airplane crashes, and human-induced explosions. 1.3 Dimensions of hazard. The impact of a disastrous event is in part a function of its magnitude, amount of energy released, and frequency, recurrence interval, but it is influenced by many other factors like climate, geology, vegetation, population and land use. Magnitude is an important characteristic for analyzing hazards since only occurrences exceeding some defined level of magnitude are considered hazardous. The level of harm is governed by magnitude of the hazard, frequency of hazard or recurrence, intensity at the impact point. In general, the frequency of such an event is inversely related to the magnitude. Small earthquakes, for example, occur more often than do large ones. The magnitude concept is the assertion that there is generally an inverse relationship between the magnitude of an event and its frequency. In other words, the larger the flood, the less frequently the flood occurs. The concept also supports the idea that much of the work of forming the Earth's surface is done by events of moderate magnitude and frequency rather than common processes with low magnitude and high frequency or extreme events of high magnitude and low frequency. Return period. Majority of hazards have return periods on a human time scale. Some examples are 5-year flood, 50-year flood and a 100-year flood. This reflects a statistical measure of how often a hazard event of a given magnitude and intensity will occur. The frequency is measured in terms of a hazard's recurrence interval. For example, a recurrence interval of 100 years for a flood suggests that in any year, a flood of that magnitude has a 1% chance of occurring. Such extreme events have very low frequencies but very high magnitudes in terms of destructive capacity. This means that an event considered being a 100-year flood would cause severe damage compared to a 5-year flood. 1.4 Hazards classification. There are many different ways of classifying hazards. One method is to consider the extent to which hazards are natural. Natural hazards such as earthquakes or floods arise from purely natural processes in the environment. Quasi-natural hazards such as smog or desertification arise through the interaction of natural processes and human activities. Technological or man-made hazards such as the toxicity of pesticide to fauna, accidental release of chemicals or radiation from a nuclear plant. These arise directly as a result of human activities. Natural hazards are basically natural processes, which may become hazardous when people live or work in areas where these processes occur. Technological hazards occur as a direct result of human interaction with the environment. They include hazards which occur due to exposure to hazardous substances, such as radon, mercury, asbestos, and coal dust. They also include other hazards that have formed only through human interaction, such as acid rain and contamination of the atmosphere or surface waters with harmful substances, as well as the potential for human destruction of the ozone layer and potential global warming. Table 1.1 General classifications of hazards. Natural hazards 1. Geologic hazards: earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, landslides, avalanches, subsidence, and impacts with space objects. 2. Hydrological hazards: floods, tsunamis. 3. Atmospheric hazards: hurricanes, tornadoes, droughts, and severe thunderstorms, lightning. 4. Biological hazards: insect infestations, disease, wildfires, technological or exposure to hazardous anthropogenic substances, such as hazards: radon, mercury, asbestos, fibers, and coal dust, acid rain, contamination of the atmosphere or surface waters. Natural hazards can also be termed as catastrophic hazards when they have devastating consequences to large numbers of people or have a worldwide effect, such as impacts huge volcanic eruptions, worldwide disease epidemics, and worldwide droughts. Secondary hazards. These are hazards that follow as a result of other hazard events. Hazards secondary to an earthquake may be listed as follows to illustrate the concept. For example, a primary hazard is the earthquake. Secondary hazards include building collapse, dam failure, fire, hazardous material spill, interruption of power, water supply, communication, transportation, waste disposal, landslide. soil liquefaction, tsunami, tidal wave, water pollution. Chronic hazards, a group of hazards that do not stem from one event but arise from continuous conditions, e.g., famine, resource degradation, pollution, and large-scale toxic contamination, which accumulate over time. Hewitt and Burton, 1971, reported a number of factors relating to damaging geophysical events that include areal extent of damage zone, intensity of impact at a point, duration of impact at a point, rate of onset of the event, predictability of the event, rate of onset of hazards. Natural hazards can also be classified into rapid onset hazards, such as volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, floods, landslides, severe thunderstorms which form with little warning and strike rapidly, or slow onset hazards, like drought and disease epidemics, take years to form. The speed of onset of a hazard is an important variable since it conditions warning time. At one extreme, earthquake, landslides, and flash floods give virtually no warning. Less extreme are tsunamis, which typically have warning periods of minutes or hours, and hurricanes and floods, where the likelihood of occurrence is known for several hours or days in advance. Volcanoes can erupt suddenly and surprisingly, but usually give indications of an eruption weeks or months in advance. Other hazards such as drought, desertification, and subsidence act slowly over a period of months or years. Hazards such as erosion, sedimentation have varying lead times. Damage may occur suddenly as the result of a storm, or may develop over many years. Spatial dispersion, this refers to the pattern of distribution of a hazard over the geographic area in which the hazard can occur. Temporal spacing refers to the sequencing and seasonality of events. Some events are quite random, volcanoes, while others have seasons, hurricanes, tropical cyclones, river floods. Hazardscape, it is the landscape of many hazards. The interaction among nature, society, and technology at a variety of spatial scales creates a mosaic of risks that affect places and the people who live there. The term is normally used in reference to a specific place or region. Each of these disasters has a different space and time signatures. Table 1.2. Navalgund, R.R. 2001. Table 1.2. Disaster time and space characteristics. Type impact time spatial extent. Earthquake seconds to minutes 102,104 sq.km. Landslide seconds 0.1 half a square km. Forest fires minutes to days 101,103 sq.km. Floods minutes to hours 105,107 square kilometers. Cyclones few hours 103,104 sq.km. Drought months to years 106 sq.km. Desertification tens of years 107,108 sq.km. 1.5 Types of natural hazards. Natural hazards can be classified into several broad categories: geological hazards, hydrological hazards, meteorological hazards, and biological hazards. Geological hazards. These are hazards driven by geological or earth processes, in particular, plate tectonics. This includes earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. In general, geological extreme events are beyond human influence, though humans have large influence on the impacts of the events. Meteorological hazards. These are hazards driven by meteorological or weather processes, in particular those related to temperature and wind. This includes heat waves, cold waves, cyclones, hurricanes, and freezing rain. Cyclones are commonly called hurricanes in the Atlantic and typhoons in the Pacific Ocean. Hydrological hazards. These are hazards driven by hydrological or water processes. This includes floods, droughts, mudslides, and tsunamis. Floods and droughts can cause extensive damage to agriculture and are among the main contributors to famine. Biological hazards. These are hazards driven by biological processes. This includes various types of disease, including infectious diseases that spread from person to person, threatening to infect large portions of the human population. Some examples are the Black Death outbreak of bubonic plague in the 1300s, killing 75 to 100 million people, and the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic, killing 50 to 100 million people. It is possible for an extreme event to fit within more than one of these categories. For example, volcano eruptions, a geological event, block incoming sunlight. Potentially enough to cause cold waves, a meteorological event. This happened in dramatic fashion in 1816 when the Mount Tambora eruption caused the year without summer in the northern hemisphere. Volcano eruptions can also cause tsunamis, a hydrological event. Some of the largest tsunamis ever occurred when volcanoes along coasts caused large landslides into the water. Earthquakes, a geological event that occur underwater, can also trigger tsunamis, a hydrological event, such as the 2011 Japan earthquake. Tsunami, case study of a natural hazard. The killer earthquake of Bhuj, Gujarat, India. While the entire country was celebrating the 51st anniversary of the Republic Day on January 26, 2001, a devastating earthquake struck the Bhuj area of the Gujarat state of India. The 7.6 magnitude Bhuj earthquake that shook the Indian province is one of the two most deadly earthquakes to strike India in its recorded history, killing thousands and causing extensive damage to property. 1 month after the earthquake, Government of India official figures placed the death toll at 19,727, number of injured at 166,000, 600,000 people were left homeless, 348,000 houses destroyed, and an additional 844,000 damaged. More than 20,000 cattle were reported killed. 1.6 Effects and service functions of natural hazards. Effects of natural hazards. Natural hazards have the potential to cause a number of primary, secondary, and tertiary effects. The secondary effects produced vary with the type of event, as does their severity. Tropical cyclones bring strong winds and heavy rains, which cause secondary hazards such as flood, storm tide, landslides, and water pollution. Flood inundates areas, which in turn may lead to landslide, erosion, water quality deterioration or turbidity, as well as sediment deposition. Severe storms range from isolated thunderstorms to intense low-pressure systems, producing phenomena such as severe winds, heavy rain, lightning, flood, storm, tide, hail, and coastal erosion. Secondary effects of bushfires include water pollution, erosion, and reduced water catchment yield. A landslide may block a watercourse, leading to flooding and debris flows upstream. Earthquakes may also bring fire, flood, water pollution, landslide, tsunami, and soil liquefaction, which can be as devastating as the primary hazard. Each of these phenomena may produce physical, social, and economic effects. Physical effects on the built infrastructure may involve structural and non-structural damage and/or progressive infrastructure deterioration. They may also result in the release of hazardous materials such as chemicals, which are usually stored in a safe environment. Social effects may include fatalities, injuries, homelessness or loss of income, or secondary effects such as psychological impact, disease, or loss of social cohesion. Economic effects may include business disruption, disruption to the supply of power, water, and telecommunications, and the cost of response and relief operations. Secondary economic impacts, such as insurance losses and rising premiums, loss of investor confidence, and costs of providing welfare and medical assistance, may also result. Institution of Civil Engineers, 1995. However, a natural hazard is not inherently negative, as hazards produce a disaster only when they impact adversely on communities. Natural hazards can bring positive environmental and social benefits. Bushfires, for example, can stimulate growth and regenerate forest ecology, as the heat from fire is required for some seeds to germinate. Luke and MacArthur, 1977. Floodplains are picturesque places for recreational activity, and floods can bring welcome relief for people and ecosystems suffering from prolonged drought. Further, the ash from volcanoes produces rich soils that can grow 3 crops per year in the tropics, and floodplains provide easily cultivated agricultural land close to a water supply. Table 1.3 Effects of hazards. Primary effects: they occur as a result water damage due to a of the process itself, flood, building collapse due to an earthquake, landslide, hurricane, or tornado. Secondary, they occur only fires ignited by effects because a primary effect, earthquakes or volcanic, has caused them eruptions. Disruption of electrical power and water service as a result of an earthquake or flooding caused by a landslide moving into a lake or river. Tertiary effects, they are long-term loss of habitat due to effects that are set off floods, crop failure caused as a result of a biovolcanic eruption, etc. Primary event. Natural service functions of natural hazards. Natural earth processes are considered only hazardous when they affect human life and property. These earth processes have important service functions as they are responsible for things that make the earth a habitable planet for life. Volcanic activity throughout the history of the earth has been responsible for producing the hydrosphere and the atmosphere. Flooding, landslides, and windstorms replenish soil, which sustain life. Maintaining and restoring nature's ecological safety is important. Dunes, barrier islands, mangrove forests and coastal wetlands are natural shock absorbers that protect against coastal storms. Forests, floodplains, and wetlands are sponges that absorb floodwaters. Nature provides these services for free, and we should take advantage of them rather than undermining them. 1.7 Disaster and Socioeconomic impacts. A disaster occurs when an extreme event exceeds a community's ability to cope with it. Understanding the process by which natural disasters produce community impacts is important. It is necessary to identify the pre-impact conditions that make communities vulnerable to disaster impacts. Also, the disaster impact processes can be used to identify specific segments of each community that will be affected disproportionately, e.g., low-income households, ethnic minorities, or specific types of businesses. The information regarding the disaster impact process can be used to identify the event-specific conditions that determine the level of disaster impact. Finally, the entire disaster impact process allows planners to identify suitable emergency management interventions. The effects of a disaster are determined by three pre-impact conditions. They include hazard exposure, physical vulnerability, and social vulnerability. There also are three event-specific conditions. They include hazard event characteristics, improvised disaster responses, and improvised disaster recovery. Communities can involve in three types of emergency management interventions to manage disaster impacts in a better way. Physical impacts can be reduced by hazard mitigation practices and emergency preparedness practices, whereas social impacts can be reduced by recovery preparedness practices. Natural hazards have impacted civilizations. They have influenced, shaped, and influenced human behavior, changing the way people live with and respond to the environment. Globally, billions of dollars have been spent in trying to mitigate or prevent, prepare for, respond to and recover from natural disasters. Natural disasters have resulted in enormous economic and social loss. 1.7.1 Social impact. More people globally are now displaced by natural disasters than by conflict. In the 1990s, natural catastrophes like hurricanes, floods, and fires affected more than 2 billion people and caused in excess of $608 billion in economic losses. We have altered so many natural systems and thus their ability to protect us from disturbances is greatly diminished. Also contributing to the rising toll of disasters is the enormous expansion of the human population and the built environment, which put more people and more economic activities in disaster-prone areas. For example, many people live within 100 kilometers of a coastline. Many of the world's megacities, with over 10 million inhabitants, live in coastal zones. The effects of global warming, extreme weather events and sea level rise will only magnify potential losses. The impact of natural hazards falls disproportionately on poor people as they are more likely to be living in vulnerable areas and they have fewer resources to prepare for or recover from disasters. Between 1985 and 1999, 96% of recorded disaster fatalities were in developing countries. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, estimates that future impacts of climate extremes will affect the poor disproportionately. Vietnam and Bangladesh, for example, are projected to lose more than 70,000 square kilometers of land, affecting some 32 million people. The entire Mediterranean coast is especially vulnerable to sea level rise, as are the US's Atlantic and Gulf coasts. 1.7.2 Economic impact. The property damage caused by disaster impact creates losses in asset values. Economic losses from are greater in the developed countries. The earthquake that rocked Kobe, Japan in 1995, for example, cost more than $100 billion, making it the most expensive natural disaster in history. Smaller losses often hit poor countries harder, where they represent a larger share of the national economy. The damage from 1998's Hurricane Mitch in Central America was $8.5 billion higher than the combined gross domestic product of Honduras and Nicaragua, the two nations hardest hit. Few of the losses in poor countries are insured. In the period 1985 to 99, the vast majority of insured losses, some 92%, were in industrial nations. For example, China now recognizes that forests are 10 times more valuable for flood control and water supply than they are for timber, and has halted logging in the Yangtze River watershed. The loss of 85% of the forests in the upper Yangtze River worsened the 1998 flood that affected 223 million people. Vietnam has restored 2,000 hectares of mangroves in a successful effort to provide a buffer from coastal storms as well as much needed jobs in fisheries. 1.7.3 Psychosocial impacts. Psychophysiological effects include fatigue, gastrointestinal upset, confusion, impaired concentration, attention deficits, anxiety, depression, and grief. They also include behavioral effects such as sleep and appetite changes, ritualistic behavior, and substance abuse. Some disaster victims require psychiatric diagnosis and benefit from counseling and orientation programs. However, there are some population segments that require special attention. These include children, old and elderly, people with pre-existing mental illness, racial and ethnic minorities, and families of those who have died in the disaster. 1.8 Vulnerability in human intervention. Vulnerability. Vulnerability refers to not only the possible physical effects of a natural hazard, but the way it affects human life and property. Vulnerability to a given hazard depends on a number of factors like proximity to a possible hazardous event, population density, construction styles and building codes, understanding and awareness of the nature of the hazard, early warning systems, lines of communication and emergency infrastructure. Generally, less developed countries are more vulnerable to natural hazards than are industrialized countries because of lack of understanding, education, infrastructure, poor building codes. Poverty is in a way directly related to vulnerability of natural hazards, since poverty leads to poor building structure, increased population density, and lack of communication and infrastructure. Human vulnerability. Humans are vulnerable to natural hazards. There is variability in the physiological response of the affected population. This means that given the same level of exposure, some people will die, others will be severely injured, still others slightly injured, and the rest will survive unscathed. Typically, the most susceptible to any hazard will be the very young, the very old, and those with weakened immune systems. Agricultural vulnerability. Like humans, agricultural plants and animals are also vulnerable to natural hazards. There are differences among and within plants and animals. However, agricultural vulnerability is more complex than human vulnerability because there is a greater number of species to be assessed, each of which has its own characteristic response to each stress. Structural vulnerability. Structural vulnerability arises when buildings are constructed using designs and materials that are incapable of resisting extreme stresses, e.g., high-speed winds, earthquakes. The construction of most buildings is governed by building codes to protect the life safety of occupants from structural collapse. Social vulnerability. Social vulnerability has been defined in terms of people's capacity to anticipate, cope with, resist and recover from the impacts of a natural hazard. Wisner, Blakey, Cannon. Natural hazards and human intervention. Although humans can do little or nothing to change the incidence or intensity of most natural phenomena, they have an important role to play in ensuring that natural events are not converted into disasters by their own actions. It is important to understand that human intervention can increase the frequency and severity of natural hazards. For example, when the toe of a landslide is removed for a settlement, the earth can move again and bury the settlement. Human intervention may also cause natural hazards where none existed before. Volcanoes erupt periodically, but it is not until the rich soils formed on their surface are occupied by farms and human settlements that they are considered hazardous. Human intervention in natural processes increases vulnerability by 1. Development and habitation of lands susceptible to hazards, for example, building on floodplains subject to floods, sea cliffs subject to landslides, coastlines subject to hurricanes and floods, or volcanic slopes subject to volcanic eruptions. 2. Increasing the severity or frequency of a natural hazard. For example, overgrazing or deforestation leading to more severe erosion, floods, landslides, mining groundwater leading to subsidence, construction of roads on unstable slopes leading to landslides. 3. Human intervention reduces the mitigating effect of natural ecosystems. For example, destruction of coral reefs, which removes the shore's first line of defense against ocean currents and storm surges, is a clear example of an intervention that diminishes the ability of an ecosystem to protect itself. 1.9 Overview of HAZARDS. Hazards. Hazard assessment is sometimes called hazard evaluation or hazard analysis. UNDRO, 1991. Hazard assessment is the process of estimating, for defined areas, the probabilities of the occurrence of potentially damaging phenomenon of given magnitude within a specified period of time. The probability of a hazard occurrence differs from place to place. The use of mapping to synthesize data on natural hazards and to combine these with socioeconomic data facilitates analysis. It improves communications among people in the hazard management process and between planners and decision makers. A hazard assessment consists of answering the following questions. When have hazardous processes occurred in the past? Where have hazardous processes occurred in the past? The magnitude and frequency of the past hazardous processes. The likely effects of a process of a given magnitude if it were to occur now. Making all this information available in a form easily understandable to public officials responsible for making decisions in event of a disaster. B. Risk assessment involves not only the assessment of hazards from a scientific point of view, but also the socio-economic impacts of a hazardous event. Risk is a statement of probability that an event will cause a certain amount of damage, or a statement of the economic impact in monetary terms that an event will cause. Risk assessment involves hazard assessment, location of buildings, highways, and other infrastructure in the areas subject to hazards, potential exposure to the physical effects of a hazardous situation. Risk assessment helps decision makers and scientists to compare and evaluate potential hazards, decide on priorities on what kinds of mitigation are possible, and on where to focus resources. 1.10 Natural disasters, international attention and strategies. The year 1990s was designated as the International Decade for Natural Disaster Reduction, IDNDR, by the United Nations with primary goal to reduce the loss of life, property, socio-economic disruption caused by natural disasters, such as earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, landslides, volcanic eruptions, droughts, locust infestations, and other disasters of natural origin. A strictly technocentric and scientific approach in the beginning was followed by the IDNDR, but the Yokohama Conference in 1994 put socio-economic aspects as component of effective disaster prevention into perspective. A global strategy aiming at reducing the impacts of natural hazards therefore must include the development of national and subnational mechanisms for disaster risk reduction. Within this context, the IDNDR advised the UN member states to establish national platforms which would facilitate the adjustment of general disaster risk reduction objectives to national, local conditions, implement the agreed policies, and expand the understanding and perception of the importance of disaster risk reduction on national levels. In practice, there remains a pressing need to revitalize and strengthen these national structures, as many countries have not established national network. The same resolution also designated the second Wednesday of October as International Day for Natural Disaster Reduction. The International Strategy for Disaster Reduction (ISDR) aims to push the initiatives and cooperation agreed on during the IDNDR and developing new mechanisms, as well as ensuring for further commitments from policymakers. The ultimate goal is to reduce human, social, economic and environmental losses due to natural hazards. The ISDR promotes the following four objectives as tools towards reaching disaster reduction for all. Increase public awareness to understand risk, vulnerability and disaster reduction globally. Obtain commitment from public authorities to implement disaster reduction policies and actions. Stimulate interdisciplinary and intersectoral partnerships, including the expansion of risk reduction networks. Improve scientific knowledge about disaster reduction. The Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. The Sendai Framework was endorsed by the UN General Assembly after the 2015 Third UN World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction (WCDRR) for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030. It is the first major agreement of the post-2015 development agenda. 7 targets are identified and 4 priorities are listed for action. The Sendai Framework was adopted on the 18th of March 2015 at the 3rd UN World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction in Sendai City, Japan. The Sendai Framework is a 15-year, voluntary, non-binding agreement. This framework recognizes that the state has the primary role to reduce disaster risk. It also emphasizes that the responsibility should be shared with other stakeholders, including local government, the private sector and other stakeholders. The ultimate aim of this framework is the substantial reduction of disaster risk and losses in lives, livelihoods and health. It also aims to reduce disaster risks regarding the economic, physical, social, cultural and environmental assets of persons, businesses, communities and countries. In conclusion, hazards are an integral part of life and no one can live in an environment totally risk-free. Each hazard varies in dimensions and assessing hazards and risks is the first important step, and the response to different hazards requires adopting different strategies. Also, policies play a fundamental role in influencing the impact of natural disasters, particularly in areas such as land use planning, construction standards and emergency management. 1.11 Summary. In this unit we have studied about an introduction to natural hazards, their types, effects, impacts, vulnerability, human intervention and an overview of assessing hazards. Humans also play a key role in creating natural disasters. The effects of urbanization and increasing population growth and density have led to a higher potential exposure to natural hazards. Natural hazards vary in dimensions. Assessing hazards and risks is the first important step, and the response to different hazards requires adopting different strategies. Further, policies play a fundamental role in influencing the impact of natural disasters. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video with the next chapter.